Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is May 28th, and we're doing government and security stories to start your week.
And here's a interesting government story. It's not the government acting, but it's the government maybe participating in something that, even at the slightest inspection, seems a little fishy, doesn't it? Like, how can this be any kind of justice? Are we prepaying for our justice these days? Is this an indulgence from the U.S. government?
Google cuts a mystery check to U.S. in a bid to sidestep a jury trial. So,
I'm going to pay you to make this go away.
well, it's the Department of Justice. They had some complaints. Reuters has the write-up. I actually found this last week, but then no one had written it up yet. So I was just like, this is crazy. But it was in a court filing that was referenced obliquely, and it said, listen, here is the maximum amount of damages that we would get monetarily from a jury trial. A jury trial is just never going to work. The jury's too stupid. Here is the money. Let's go before a judge and explain it to a judge, and let's be judged by judge for the Department of Justice thing. And so it almost seems like a bribe.
I think that's what most of us would call that in a normal world.
If not a bribe, more like, hey guys, listen, we're busy over here. We all know how this is going to play out. So just take the money and leave us alone.
This was the advertising wing overcharging and playing games with. So, okay, but how wild is it that the maximum amount of damages that you would be liable for what they've said you've done, you just like, yeah, this is not worth our headache.
If someone were to dig into it, I bet that whatever sets those maximum damages is a result of prior lobbying from a company like Google, if not Google. Right? I mean, that's how it goes.
It's just all the way down.
But a little bit of good news, and very little, but at least, there's something.
Julian Assange wins a right to appeal against extradition to the U.S. This is the article from The Guardian. When you read it, it's a tiny, tiny bit of good news.
This goes back to, they were like, hey, U.S. government, again, we need these two assurances from you. First is he has to have the right to free speech. Even though he's not an American, if we're going to extradite him to you, he has to have the right of free speech. The other one that you have to guarantee is that you're not going to kill him. And the U.S. is like, can't do it.
That's just a bridge too far for us. Sorry.
So they've given him more time for these appeals based on the response to those two questions.
The U.S. government did kind of, like Assange's lawyers did say, it's like, well, we're pretty sure they're not going to kill him. And that they've agreed to that. But they haven't agreed to it in writing. But we're pretty sure that they've made concessions to do that. But still, that's wild. It's absolutely wild. Because he's never been to the U.S.
And as usual, our lawmakers are a bit behind the curve and probably not 100% genuine in their arguments. But God, does this sound good when you have some sound bites that you're fighting for the people.
Lawmakers call out 8 automakers for sharing connected vehicle data. They largely ask that this be done in private and away from the eyes of citizens. Like, it's fine.
Listen, we're getting a lot of junk mail in our inbox about this right now.
The craziest thing here is sort of like where they draw the line versus where you might draw your personal line. For example, they praised General Motors. Now remember, OnStar was what kicked this whole thing off, where they were selling it to the insurance companies, but they didn't give it warrantlessly to the cops, which most of the other automakers did. So everybody was like, good job, GM. You're setting an example that everybody needs to follow here.
The bar is in hell. And yet they still can't clear it.
So what you're saying is the headline is not accurate at all if you're just a normal citizen.
I guess if you're a criminal, although aren't we all at this point?
Some of us more than others.
If you just don't want to be spied on, no one is representing you in Washington.
It's wild. It's so wild.
And they never will. And we have the whole crypto argument going on, and we have two different things. This one is not the Ethereum ETFs. This is a different kind of crypto bill.
The U.S. House has passed a crypto bill despite warnings from the SEC. What did the SEC warn them about? The SEC said, hey, these cases that we're winning, finally, you're going to kick the case out from underneath us if you explicitly codify some of this as okay in law.
Gensler was still against this, but I guess he wasn't able to get the votes. So a little bit more crypto freedom if you're into that kind of thing. And again, very much against his will.
The SEC approves 8 Ethereum ETFs, including BlackRock and Fidelity.
And those names at the end there are all you need to hear as to why this happened, because that's the real power in this country.
So cryptocurrency is being co-opted by the old guard at this point, is what you're saying.
Maybe it's just the final stages of it. I mean, they've been in the process of that for quite some time. And the SEC is also, I thought we already had this rule.
Yes.
Didn't we cover this?
We did.
But I guess maybe it's just now going into effect, or maybe
a different agency, I guess.
Maybe they didn't enforce it. I don't know.
Now the SEC is saying financial organizations have 30 days to send breach notification data. Maybe the SEC sees this as a revenue opportunity. It's like, hey, if the feds aren't going to do anything, we could make some money from this.
I don't know. They also have to tell you, not just Joe Biden. Because I remember the previous one might have just been the government, right?
Huh.
But no, if you're affected, they have to tell you within 30 days, which is a good rule. Maybe a little too much of a window there, right? Like, why wouldn't you tell me the moment you find out?
Or maybe they need to try to get details. But how much detail do you really need to know as a...
Well, how about too much detail, which is what we get here, because this is horrific, but it's important to know the darkness.
The DOJ makes its first known arrest for AI-generated CSAM. And in this case, it was used to lure a 15-year-old boy. So this is, I don't know, we're going to follow this.
I think lure is probably the wrong word. I think grooming is probably more, right? It's like, oh, hey, look at this. How do you feel about this? You want to get together? And, yeah. This guy forked his own version of, do you remember which model it was? Stable diffusion. So there's a fork of stable diffusion out there explicitly for, hey, let me do whatever I want. And that's going to be fuel for, hey, you people aren't allowed to have AI. Only OpenAI can have AI. You must rent it.
It's like the crypto panic all over again, where, you know, only outlaws would have cryptography. Only outlaws will have math.
Well, there is a new standard when it comes to crypto, meaning cryptography and not cryptocurrency. And that is because the powers that be are a little bit concerned about this whole quantum thing.
The NIST releases its first post-quantum cryptography standard. I'm a little worried about this one personally because of the whole dual elliptic curve thing.
Are you suggesting that it might have a backdoor that the intelligence agencies have built into it?
That would never happen. I trust our intelligence
Is
agencies.
that a level 1 predicts? Well, it's interesting how, you know, we put certain things toward that. Like, we're protecting some things, mostly in the corporate world, right, from quantum stuff. But there are other things that would affect, you know, just regular folks, not the power brokers, that seem to be in much worse shape.
The EPA says it will step up enforcement to address critical vulnerabilities within the water sector.
I would argue that would affect everybody. Maybe disproportionately those of us at the bottom of the ladder. But
I bet everybody involved in that last story have personal filters in their homes. So they don't have to worry about this. Probably have like storage tanks. But the crazy thing about this is like, oh, what are we doing? Are we like, you know, giving them a bunch of money to upgrade the systems? No. They just did an audit and it's like everybody's using default passwords.
yeah, and literally anyone can just waltz in.
Stuff's on the internet that shouldn't be on the internet. No one's doing anything here. It's wild.
I worry that some of what we've seen is prelude to making the excuse to private ownership for water companies, water municipalities, because, oh, they're not doing a good job with security. And they're not doing a good job with security, but that doesn't mean that private ownership is going to make it any better. But if we do that, that is going to be a place where they make money because, you know, your local water municipality doesn't make a lot of money. But like Texas, it's like there can be an insane profit margin on energy. There can be an insane profit margin on delivering potable water because you need that.
That's a dark future to think about. You'll pay it because you have to.
Yeah.
What are you going to do, not drink water?
But, I mean, wouldn't that also give us the ability to make data centers pay a lot for water and not just, you know, and like the like, you remember how Nestle would get those contracts where they would buy the municipal water for less than they would sell it to the people for, and then they bottle it and sell it to us?
If it's like the old newspaper ownership rules, then yeah, it's like, oh, it's got to be a local owner operator. You can't own any more than 4 water companies. That'd be fine. Taking it private in that. But when it's like BlackRock owns your water company, I think it'd be worse.
Water is definitely going to be a battleground.
Yeah.
In our entire future. And another battleground will be, of course, the police state and the privacy-minded people. And recently we've seen some encouraging headlines, right? Like the cities have made this illegal, but have they really?
These cities bar facial recognition technology, but police still found ways to access it. Sometimes cleverly, sometimes they just ignored the law and they were just like, we can have
That doesn't
this.
apply to me.
In most cases, they went the most direct route, which is just to call a police station that's in another place that doesn't have those laws. And be like, hey, can we use here's a picture. Can you run it through your thing? And the answer was always yes. And so they got facial recognition, even though it's not legal for them to do that.
Can you guys come put some cameras up in our jurisdiction? Sure.
The great thing about it, though, is when somebody found out, all those people were punished. No, I'm lying. That's never going to happen.
Good joke. It's not April Fool's anymore, though.
Well, you want to talk about don't privatize things. That flies out the window when you get up into the atmosphere, doesn't it?
Pentagon worried its primary satellite launcher can't keep pace. Literally no one can keep pace with Elon Musk and SpaceX. That's a problem for the Pentagon.
But these guys are doing a really poor job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a backlog. There's a bunch of spy satellites piled up out in the, like in the boneyard somewhere. Like, guys, we got to get these up there. But they can't. And maybe this headline was designed to encourage them a bit and make the people get excited about this, because it's like, hey guys, other countries aren't waiting like we are.
The Pentagon's headline is Russia likely launched a counter space weapon into low Earth orbit last week. So this is a satellite that has the capability to take out other satellites, supposedly.
Yeah, we don't know anything about it. That's all speculation. Let's remember that a lot of the horrible things that our government has done in the past, the excuse for doing them has been, I bet Russia's doing this.
Yeah.
So, and that's literally what this article is. And they're like, well, what do we know about this? And he's like, well, we know it's in the same orbit as one of our satellites, and that's all we need to know.
Isn't that like millions of miles apart? It's like, no.
But SpaceX is actually working with the government. In the past, they've had some spats. But especially when it comes to the Ukraine situation, I think he's trying to get some PR back on his side here.
The space news headline is the Pentagon is working with SpaceX to cut off Russian military's illicit use of Starlink internet. The DoD official says that, yeah, SpaceX has been very cooperative in doing exactly what we ask.
Do you think that's like they're talking to people at SpaceX who aren't Elon Musk?
Probably.
He's
yeah.
busy with like Tesla right now, so
He's
not in the meetings, and they're like,
No.
wow, this is pretty easy to work with.
No, he's at the meeting, but he's just face down on the conference table from ketamine.
They can hear him snoring, but they're like, yeah, that's contribution enough.
I assume that you can tell where a base station is based on which satellites it's communicating with, right? So you should be able to pinpoint them. Another big argument that private companies have been having with the government is, do we need to pay the gig workers a minimum amount? Should they have protections like their workers? And there's a good argument to say no, except that Uber controls them and controls their entire lives and forces them to do certain things as if they were not gig workers, but actual workers.
Uber and Lyft report that they're going to not actually leave Minneapolis because the state has passed new minimum wage for drivers law, which we reported on. It's like, Uber and Lyft, they're out of Minneapolis. Well, not so fast.
Why? Because they were able to lobby and water it down a little bit. And they got the price down to, I think, like 15 something an hour. 57% less than the original number. That's the power of lobbying.
I wonder how they arrived at that percentage.
They started at 90 and bitterly fought until they got to 57 and someone said yes. And here's a great argument against monopolies, for sure, because that's pretty much what all of our corporations are at this point. And another great indicator of how bad lobbying is.
TechNerd has the headline about Utah locals are getting local and cheap 10 gigabit fiber thanks to local governments. This is a municipal operation that has been slowly and growing and expanding. Like a cancer, some ISPs would say. It's actually, ISPs are paying millions of dollars, apparently, we'll have another article, to smear this ISP and say that it's a boondoggle and that taxpayers are wasting money on it and blah, blah, blah. But actually, they've raised their own money and capital in a lot of cases, and they're doing well. They're doing really well financially, even with high interest rates.
So 10 gigabit for $150 a month. That sounds like a dream, right? But 40 of that goes to the municipality because they were smart enough to be like, hey guys, if we just build the infrastructure and let anybody use it, then we take a fee off of that. Over time, we'll probably make money, right?
And they do.
It's amazing.
Now, it's subsidized. Like they have debt and they're paying down the debt, but they're paying down the debt faster than the debt is accruing interest by quite a margin with just the $40. So you've got $100 left over to provide service on that.
But think about this. Imagine a world where this always happened. Even though they went into debt, they improved the lives of their citizens immensely because now they don't have to worry about monopolies on their ISP.
We actually do have more stories on this particular thing because there's a lot of really damning evidence from like dark money hush groups going after Utopia specifically. It's been in the news everywhere. You may have seen it. But when you dig into it, it is amazing how threatened incumbent ISPs are, which tells you how much money there is to be made here, which should only make us rally together and fight against them because, like I was complaining about last week, AT&T has hollowed out the thing that they have that is valuable. If you're a shareholder, you should be interested in that. And all they have left is their 800-pound gorilla status to prevent competition from displacing them.
I worry there might be another thing that they have, which is being a centralized source for all communication makes you a very convenient conduit for recording all of that information. If you broke it all down into 100 different ISPs in a single place, imagine how much more difficult that would be.
That seems like that would be good for citizen privacy, though. And just, it's like, I'd like to fly under the grid. No.
Who do we know that might not want that? Well, we want to know one company that doesn't really care much about your privacy, and that's good old Tesla. But that's not their problem today.
The Ars Technica headline is Tesla must face a fraud suit for claiming its cars could fully drive themselves. And this lawsuit dates from 2016, almost a decade ago.
Oh, don't say that.
And has been appealed twice. They won the first appeal.
Nobody's stupid enough to believe our advertising claims.
Yeah, actually, one of their defenses is the cars don't have LiDAR. How could you possibly expect it to self-drive without LiDAR? It's like, well, they did have LiDAR.
That's like a chicken and egg thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, wait a minute. Should they be on the roads? And some people definitely should not be on the roads. But is that a reason to strip all of our freedoms down to the little ones that give you just a glimmer of joy throughout your day?
California bill would require new cars to beep at speeding drivers.
I don't understand who thinks this is a good idea. Imagine if you live anywhere near a freeway and it's just incessant beep, 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 beep,
Well,
beep, beep,
I don't
beep.
think it's the horn, right? It's probably inside the...
I don't know. Either way, it's annoying.
I don't think this will be effective at all because there is a whole class of people that just breathtakingly cannot hear or are not bothered by
Beep.
smoke alarm chirps.
Yeah. Even if I wasn't bothered, Rue is so bothered, our dog. She freaks out when one of them runs out of battery. She'll come run and hide.
I don't understand that at all, but it's a thing.
Uh-huh.
I'll watch a lot of those Zoom court videos,
You can hear it in the
and
background.
it's just amazing. Like, you're in court. And California as well is, it looks like, you think we're going to have a federal law at some point, right?
Yeah.
This is a growing like a cancer, again, to take Wendell's thing from earlier.
California is the latest state to consider adult side age verification requirements.
It's kind of surprising from California. Aren't they, I guess with the advent of the new age of OnlyFans, they've lost that status, but weren't they like the biggest producer of that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Maybe they're salty about that. And using artificial intelligence in lawmaking. I guess I thought we had rules against it already. Was that Europe? But anyway, apparently we don't.
Arizona state lawmaker used ChatGPT to write part of the law on deepfakes.
He was like, I didn't know how to define this one term, so I let ChatGPT do it. And
It was like malicious something, right? He was trying to describe exactly what would entail.
yeah, he was like, I'm not a tech guy, so I let it do the tech definition for me, and then I wrote the rest of it myself. And I was kind of like, that's not great. Like, you should be able to concisely summarize it if you're making a law about it.
But when you make laws, you actually want them to be as broad as possible so that then later you can use them in any situation. And this one, I'm sure, is affecting a lot of the young people. We learned that some desperate Swifties actually left the country because it was cheaper overall to buy the plane ticket and the ticket for a European show than it was to deal with these people.
Justice Department seeks to break up Live Nation and Ticketmaster through a major antitrust lawsuit. Seems reasonable.
I mean, when you own the venues and the ticketing.
So do we have rules about this with Disney and movie theaters? Like,
It's weird, though, because how is this different than newspapers?
Well, there's no venue with a newspaper.
Well, they own the publisher owns the everything.
Disney, the better is Disney and movie theaters, because Disney's not allowed to own theaters. There was legislation about that a long time ago, because they were like, no, because then you'll just put your own movies in there and not let anybody else show anything, which kind of already happened anyway. But
there was I can't remember what one of the newspaper stories we have later where I didn't know that the same company owns the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post. So it's kind of like
they're playing both sides, so they always come out on top.
Well, Wall Street Journal is, I don't know, they're not as lefty as a lot of the papers are, but New York Post is very right.
Yeah.
And they do often disagree. And moving over to Europe, they are disagreeing with all this rampant AI growth.
Europe sets the benchmark for the rest of the world with landmark AI laws that don't make any sense. Well, Europe is trying. They're confused.
They might not quite understand it. At this point, I don't think we have a lot of concrete details about exactly what this is going to do, though, right? Have they released it?
It's really just around
It's a very
training
short
material and interaction and safety and alignment, and it's just
you have to reveal what went into it in some cases.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Which I don't know how equipped they are to do that. Certainly won't be willing to. And Apple over in the EU, my God, is Apple the most petulant loser in the history of corporations?
Apple says if you want to ship your own iOS browser engine in the European Union, you actually need to be there.
Now, we're not saying you need to have an office there or that you need to incorporate there. No. In order to run the dev kit, you are geo-fenced to be inside the EU. There's going to be laptop farms for browser developers.
You're telling me that they're stimulating the economy.
Somebody's economy. And here's just a fun update because we all know that this man was lying. And we'll probably never know the actual identity of Nakamoto. Is that right, Nakamoto?
Yeah.
But we know one thing. It's not this guy.
The Reuters headline is self-proclaimed Bitcoin inventor lied repeatedly to support his claim. At least that's what a UK judge has said. It is not surprising. We sort of followed this as it happened. But the judge has finally said, this is not credible.
He was trying to stop all development of anything Bitcoin related. So it was actually a huge pain that everybody was dealing with. And Wendell, you'll be on your way to Taiwan soon, which is interesting because, you know, maybe they'll let you into the country, maybe they won't. Maybe you'll be abducted over to mainland China to be interrogated. But good news, if the worst happens, we might lose you.
I can be remotely deactivated.
But we won't lose, well, I mean, we will lose the lithography, but China won't gain it.
ASML and TSMC can disable chip machines if China invades Taiwan. The thing this headline leaves out is China's already got some chip machines. Yeah, they're not as good as TSMC. What do we got here in the States? We got IBM and Global Foundries. It's not super amazing. We got Intel. Intel's doing their thing. It's like...
So I was wondering, these machines are obviously calling home constantly. They have constant updates, and it'd probably be difficult to run one without anything, getting back to. But if China were to cut all the undersea cables first, is there like a radio backup or something, you think?
Probably satellite. There's a lot of satellite on top of all the buildings, so
You can knock that out pretty easy.
yeah.
You'd have to do it quickly.
I wonder if there's any secret laser links anywhere. Laser is hard to block with jamming. You have to like optically block it. That I can't wait for that. That's going to be interesting. Is using like a maser or something like that with Starlink, because then jamming and everything else is problematic.
Well, you know what's problematic in China, like it is everywhere else in the world? The consumer. The consumer does not have any money. So what do?
Apple slashes iPhone prices in China amid fierce Huawei competition.
Thousands, up to 2,000 yuan, which is like what, $400, I think, off the big flagship phones, because everybody in China is like, you know what, I think I can get by with a Huawei. I don't need the clout.
We might finally see some non-iOS, non-Mac OS innovative software development finally then. That'll be great.
Well, we're definitely going to see innovation in this field going forward, because this seems to be where the world is going, right? We know that when the U.S. now has advanced laser weapons, China's trying something a little different.
China uses a giant railgun to shoot smart bomb 9 miles into the sky. So basically, instead of the smart bomb having a propellant and rocketry and all this sort of stuff, they use electromagnets to accelerate the bomb really fast. And then from there, it can just glide to wherever it needs to go.
However, in this case, it started spinning and did not do what they wanted. But 9 miles, when you screw it up, still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was supposed to go 14 miles.
How many miles to the Taiwan mainland?
An awkward chuckle ensues.
And as usual, the U.S. sanctions, at this point, it's just comical how ineffective they've been.
China has replaced their imported quantum computer component with domestic product immediately after U.S. sanctions. Oh, Origin Quantum's like, we'll just build what we need. And they did. Well, at least according to this.
In some ways, aren't we forcing them to do the work to get better that we're not doing?
Yeah.
Because we can still be dependent on the rest of the world?
Bit of a problem, yeah.
If we still buy, yeah.
Seems like a long-term issue could pop up there. And if you work in the IT industry, you're probably looking at a job situation where you're facing tons of layoffs and no one's hiring. But they are hiring some people, and this should probably make you a little bit angry.
Arizona woman accused of helping North Koreans get remote IT jobs at 300 companies. This is a little bit of a follow-up to when we reported on this previously, but Ars Technica has a really good breakdown. $6.8 million. It's no wonder she did it. That's crazy.
How wild is it that if you're North Korean and you're working IT for an American company, you're seeing a window into this world. How does do
you not have a moment of like, wow, I wish I could just get out? Like,
yeah, I would love to hear those guys interviewed. But it was all one woman. She had a laptop farm running out of Arizona somewhere. She was collecting all the paychecks and then moving them on. That's probably what's going to get her, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't move that money. And we all know that scams are becoming more and more of a problem, again, because, economic collapse. People are desperate. And people are also very gullible. How do you fix it?
Match Group, Meta, and Coinbase and more form an anti-scam coalition. Tech Against Scams members will collaborate on identifying and preventing online fraud.
It's a tough job. The deepfakes are out there. And one thing that will be sold to you as, hey, we need more security, which means, of course, that you have to give up more privacy. See how that works? That slider?
With JP Morgan, MasterCard, etc., they're on board in a biometric breakthrough, so you can soon start paying with your face and have an even harder time convincing them that it wasn't you that used your card for a bunch of stuff.
Sir, your face has no value. Please leave.
it's just heartbreaking to hear that just said out loud, isn't it?
Only attractive people can have coffee. And deepfakes, as I mentioned before, kind of expecting this to be the next story, but it wasn't, are out there, and it's really, really hard. You have to think that this guy has probably heard of this kind of thing, right? Yeah. But it was convincing enough.
British engineering giant are revealed as a $25 million deepfake scam victim.
So this guy got the notice to like, hey, send this huge amount of money to these accounts. And he was like, you know what? I better double check this. Jump on a quick call. Let's hop on a call, guys.
Ugh.
And he hopped on a call with some deepfakers. And got burned anyway. And if you are in college and you are poor, but you still have to, you don't want to stink. That's something important. You still got to wash your clothes. Maybe there's a solution you don't want to tell anybody about, but you could explore.
2 Santa Cruz students uncover security bug that let anyone do their laundry for free. One of them deposited like $1 million into their laundry account, which is hilarious.
So the mobile app that you download to interface with these machines, because they're not coin operated anymore, did all the security in the app and then sent raw data to the server, which didn't authenticate anything. And as soon as they figured that out, they could do whatever they wanted.
Is that common at universities? Like our university in the dorms, there were like 6 or 7 washer and dryers for our little area, and like you didn't have to pay to use them if you were a dorm person, someone who lived there.
I bet universities are doing everything they can
to suck up money,
squeeze more money out of the students.
That's wild to me.
Because it's getting less and less popular because people can afford it.
They literally nickel and dime you just to do laundry after you're already paying a huge amount of money to live on campus.
And here's a depressing statistic, but not surprising at all. Because it seems like, a little bit of fame goes a long way to making people want this, right? Like, it's not about beauty necessarily. It's just about, this person is something to me, and now I want to see them in this light.
Over 90% of female influencers on Instagram fall victim to deepfakes. Deepfake adult material, finds a study. Yeah, people are terrible.
15% per 10,000 followers. That's an interesting measurement, isn't it? You think any young girls are like, they're at one point that's like, oh, wow, I got more followers, but then they're doing the math in their head and they're like, oh.
Oh, no.
It's out there. And, here's another thing you'll be dealing with, Wendell. Yep. Hotel check-ins. They want a lot of information, don't they?
Spyware found on U.S. hotel check-in computers. Yeah.
Just don't think about it.
That's bad.
Easy.
Even just getting a SIM card, they want a photo of your passport.
This thing was taking screenshots, but it wasn't like, Angry Bear or whatever. It was PC Tattletale. This is a commercial product for spying on your spouse/children.
Oh,
and
fabulous.
Somehow somebody got this. Like, how does nobody notice this? I guess it's meant to be hidden. What a horrible thing to create. And what a horrible thing. Now, this is like, the legal team, they have no shame ever. Yeah. They'll do whatever they have to do. They'll say whatever they have to say to try and stop losing money.
I'm sure you've seen this headline elsewhere. The Fox 4 headline is American Airlines backtracks after lawyers blame girl 9 for not seeing hidden camera in bathroom. It wasn't really hidden so much as it was an iPhone taped under a sticker that said, this toilet is malfunctioning, or the toilet lid is malfunctioning, don't close it. And so, yeah, there's an iPhone taped under the sticker. But there was a dude on the plane that was directing, young girls to use this particular lavatory, which is insane. And so American Airlines was named in a lawsuit, and they said, well, the 9-year-old girl should have noticed that. And that was not.
They also argue that he was acting outside of his role as cabin staff. Which, how do you make that argument? Like, why else would he be there? He wouldn't have the opportunity to do this if he wasn't part of the staff. Makes no sense. And again, I love watching the Zoom courts. It's so much better drama than anything that Hollywood can produce these days. And usually, you're not allowed to record it, actually. That only comes through FOIA requests afterwards, and people have to pay for that. So it's a weird situation. But some people clearly didn't want to pay for it.
Crooks plant backdoor in software used by courtrooms around the world.
Think how much more content you could have had.
They also do what they call breakout rooms, where if everybody's remote, but you need to talk to your lawyer, that has to be off the record, right? So I'm assuming that these people have that,
Ooh.
which is absolutely not allowed at all, because that's like attorney-client. I wonder if that could. Do you think that can upend a case?
Could probably.
Yeah.
I hope they don't take away our Zoom cords.
You have so little to look forward to. Please don't take away my Zoom cords. Ryan's gotten into making jerkies now, chat. Tell him what kind of jerky you should make next. Tell him what kinds you've made.
Salmon jerky I made last night. It was pretty good, yeah. It's really good. Some pieces are really fishy and some are not. I'm not sure why.
I don't know. Did you use the skin? Oh, no, you said you'd take it off. And the cats didn't want it.
They were pretty good, though. Yeah, I made apples, salmon, and beef so far.
All right, chat. That was your engagement challenge. We will see you in the next one. Bye!